So where are you located?
I live in Mesa, Arizona.
Oh, right on. So were
Yeah.
you next to the whole Diamondbacks thing? Did you get into it?
No, we're a little bit further out of Phoenix,
Okay.
so we're not affected by anything. How do they win?
No, they got beat by the Rangers.
Okay. Do they
Yeah.
have like a riot or something?
No, I think everything was cool. I from what I heard, I didn't hear of anything weird.
Okay, gotcha. Well, you said yeah. I didn't know if I missed something. I
Oh
haven't been watching
no.
it.
I just, I'm in Kansas City and we went through a World Series run in 14,
Yeah,
15, and it was really cool. I mean, everybody really got into it, so I just didn't know. Um,
nice.
it's always good. But yeah, man, it's great to meet you. And I want to begin our conversation with what we've lived through for the last 3.5 years. How did you get through the global pandemic and how did it change you?
Yeah. Are we starting the podcast?
Yeah, whenever, yeah. I come from jazz radio, so I tend to just when the hi hat is hit, I dive right in.
That sounds good to me. Yeah. How did the podcast or how did the pandemic change me? Well, interesting. I was traveling a lot in 2018. I solo all my things, quit my childhood dream job, and took a one-way flight to Costa Rica, and ended up backpacking for 18 months, and had trips abroad planned in summer of 2020. Had it all booked out to backpack through East Africa and then live in Bali the summer of 2020. Obviously, that didn't happen. So it really shifted the focus and direction of my life, and then I ended up settling down in Florida for a little while. I'm in Arizona right now, so moved to Florida and settled down there. And honestly, like other than that big shift, which really would have changed the direction of my life, in Florida, the pandemic almost didn't exist.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. I was hosting retreats in Colombia, so we were traveling quite a bit and stuff, and it was never really a problem. And then I actually went to a weekend up in Oregon, and yeah, I experienced this sort of like segregation, what I call segregation, where I wasn't allowed into a restaurant because I'm not vaccinated. And so that was sort of an interesting experience. But really, what it helped me do is like I left the fire service because something inside of me was saying something is off here. And although my life was really kind of almost unaffected in a way in Florida because I was there, but it really opened me up to bringing to light a lot of the different things that were going on in the world that I kind of felt like something was off, but then I could have like a name to it, or I could better, more clearly see some of the industrial complexes that are running the world. And yeah, more people got on to that as well. So they really helped me wake up
Yeah.
and connect with people.
So let's get to the essence of what you do for a living. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders. It's career day. One of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
That's a great question. That's funny because one of the things I do is credit repair. And the other thing I do is business funding. So I was thinking right there, like, how would I explain credit repair to a third grader? That would be an interesting conversation. But um, yeah, at the end of the day, what we do is we help business owners get the funding they need to start up or scale their business without spending their own money. And we've removed all barriers to entry, one of which is a person's personal credit score. So we can help people clean up their credit. We've got a lot of other tricks in our sleeve to increase credit scores and do all these different things. So essentially, if the goal is to win the game and the game is building a beautiful life, we have created an opportunity to help people create their beautiful life, create their dream job, live their purpose without spending their own money.
Wow. So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
Firefighter.
Okay.
Yeah, Marine and Firefighter was like my thing since seventh grade. Actually, I don't know what I was. Probably still a firefighter though in third grade. Yeah.
So how did we get to this point? Take me back to where you were born and raised and the seeds that got into you to make you want to sell everything and travel and to help people find financial freedom. How did all this become you today?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot in there. So let me settle into what would be important to share right now. So I mentioned seventh grade. So I was a pretty troubled youth, and like yeah, just had a really troubled youth, got kicked out of school for fighting, smoking weed, cussing out teachers, those sort of things. But in seventh grade, I was in seventh grade on 9/11. And that was the first time where I saw like the country come together and people like go off to stand for what I thought was freedom and these sort of things. It really pulled me out of myself and gave me a clear focus to essentially save me from my troubled youth and put me on that path to service. So I got kicked out of my house my freshman year in high school, but moved on, joined the Marine Corps, grew as a leader. I traveled around the world with my best friends. I served as a machine gunner on 3 deployments. I served in combat in Afghanistan in 2010 and learned a lot about leadership in the world. And then I just always felt so called to stand for freedom. And that's what I believed, I thought I was doing at the time. And then I moved on. My dream was to become a firefighter, but I struggled a bit in the transition from the military to the fire service. And I lost a lot of purpose. I lost a lot of brothers from suicide and overdoses and these sort of things throughout that process. I lost my direction. And one thing that really saved me was a volunteer trip to Lima, Peru, where I worked at an orphanage and worked with these kids who had sticks and balls and dirt, but the biggest smiles I'd ever seen. And it really shifted, another like paradigm shifting experience that just put me on another path. It had me a lot questioning the way the United States runs itself and like our values and the materialism and what's important with celebrity gossip and these sort of things. But either way, I shifted my focus and I started to serve in my community and volunteer at the Phoenix Children's Hospital. I was a mentor for troubled kids and eventually built up a nonprofit where I was connecting troubled youth with veterans as they were transitioning to connect, like essentially save both parts of me and make that something that was impactful in my community. I was a firefighter at that time. And as a firefighter, I started to learn about like the underpinnings of like our culture, like people, like where most people forget about the people that are the most other people would forget about is who we're typically working with. And I really opened up to the fact that the vast majority of calls are mental health in nature, ranging from drunks and addicts in the streets to suicides and overdoses in people's homes. And it just really made me question like what I was actually doing. 3% of the calls are actually fires or less. So I just felt like my childhood dream was like almost like an illusion. Like I was doing what I thought I was supposed to do to be a good boy. But as I was in it, I didn't really get that feeling like I was doing something on purpose. Like there had to be a better way.
Yeah.
And so I started the nonprofit, was doing pretty well in the fire service, got recognized as the Arizona State Firefighter of the year in 2017 for going out on my way on a couple of calls. Also, the nonprofit was getting some attention. So yeah, I was at the pinnacle of the profession 2017, and then spoken for hundreds of firefighters at the State Fire School. But ultimately, the month later, I like hit a wall. I crashed down hard and became very depressed. I pulled the brakes on the nonprofit and essentially like started to question everything about my life, and really just went to this space where I hadn't dealt with my childhood trauma, I hadn't dealt with my Marine Corps trauma and the trauma on the job at the fire service. That compounding on a lot of different things in my personal life, my best friend dying of a heroin overdose and from the Marines and all these different things, right? So say all that to say a little bit of who I am and what got me here. But that pushed me on a path. I eventually decided, feeling that call from my heart to reconnect with what I thought was my most authentic experience in Lima, Peru, a couple years before. I decided I was going to move to Costa Rica. And I went on this. So the next 6 months, I sold all my stuff, eventually quit my job, took a one-way flight to Costa Rica, and went on this journey to find out who I am and what I'm like here to do now that my childhood dream is not the thing. So the biggest factors in my life have been fighting for freedom and serving my community. That's how I live my life. And that's what I want to be remembered for. And as I got deeper into what we were just opened up with, like what's going on in the world, COVID, like all those things that bubbled up, I really started to study the Constitution. I started to learn that really the biggest block from freedom for most people in the world right now, or at least in the US, is their finances. And the financial system is the matrix of control that keeps people suppressed, keeps people locked in to a job they hate because they're paying off a whole bunch of student loans or credit card debt. All these systems they're unconstitutional, they're fraudulent. And so it's funny. My life has come full circle, and I'm stepping into credit repair and helping people unlock abundance in their life to create more freedom in their life. So although I never would have intentionally could have planned this, it's totally aligned with where I'm at and helping people create freedom and serving my community.
Wow, that's quite a timeline there. I'm actually watching a special on Rainn Wilson, the guy that played Dwight on The Office, and he's going around the world trying to figure out what's making people happy. And he's gone to, impoverished places where people are happy, like you had mentioned that vignette. And he is just blown away by the factors that, like, in a lot of these communities, they really do come together for the community. There's not
Yeah,
some overarching fame thing. They just feel impelled within. And a lot of what you're saying is that,
yeah,
being fulfilled and doing it for the right reasons. Yeah.
exactly.
So let me ask you this. Who's been kind of a role model or a hero for you in your life?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, the first one that always comes to mind is a man named Mr. Blue, who was my mentor that came in. So seventh grade was a big year for me, and it's just kind of funny because it was so long ago, but it was really impactful because 9/11 happened for me, and that gave me my direction for life. But also, Mr. Blue came into my life, and really he was like the mentor that really supported me through a lot of the troubles I was getting into in middle school. And then when he got laid off is when I eventually got back in trouble and got kicked out of my house. But so he was massive. A number of men that I served with in the Marines were mentors at the time that I really deeply respected and loved. People that were right there, they would give you your shirt off the back and be right in the foxhole with you, even though they didn't have to. So I learned a lot about leadership in the Marines and like who I liked and who didn't like, or really just like who's a good leader and who's not, from my perspective at least. And you could just really see how that shows up and how they carry themselves and handle adversity. But then from there, I've had a number of mentors that supported me through the transition from the fire service. I've got a number of brothers that I'm with on a couple different men's groups I'm a part of. One called Sacred Sons. The leadership community there is excellent, and I'm a part of that as well. So I'm very blessed to have a number of men that have supported me over the years.
What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
What's the best advice I've ever gotten? I thought about so my best friend from the Marines, he's the one that passed away in 2016, but he always said, "Don't think about it, just do it." And that got us in plenty of trouble, which is why I laughed, but it's also really real and like relevant to my life. And I think a lot of people's lives right now, instead of holding back and thinking about all the what ifs, get clear on the vision, on clear on what you want. You take the first step. Don't think about it, just do it.
Yeah.
The next step always appears. And that's been my experience.
So if you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now and spend some time with them, who would it be?
If I can meet anybody on the planet right now, that's a good question. I haven't thought that one through entirely. I feel like I think one that just comes to my mind is Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
because I feel like he's a great synthesizer of information, a great interviewer, and he's already met with like all the people that I probably would want to meet with anyways.
Yeah.
So I could connect with him on that and almost like through him connect with all the people and all the wisdom he's got from all of his interviews.
Yeah, Joe's solid gold. So every day you wake up, what is the motivator for you? What gets you out of bed? What gets you to help people, to do the work that you do, and to be you ultimately?
Yeah, thanks. I feel like the big driver of freedom. I experienced a lot of pain as a child and a lot of loss, and like saw my mom suffer a lot. And so I think a big driver for me is that, or had been a lot of my life, and I think it's still present. But the main driver for me right now is my beautiful baby girl,
Yeah.
Ellie Hart.
Nice.
Ellie means the bringer of light. That's my wife next to her as well. And she's amazing. And yeah, I just she's 8 months old now, and so I'm seeing her. She's excited to see me every day, and I just want to leave a lasting legacy for my daughter and ensure that she has freedom and abundance and community and love, that she can continue to move forward with her life.
So what's been one of the best success stories in your job right now? What's one that always puts a smile on your face?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've had a few. We just had a client that got 90K. So we do is we leverage a process known as credit stacking, where we leverage multiple, if necessary, 0% interest introductory business credit card offers, so people can start or scale their business essentially for free. So they have a 12 to 18 month runway. It's free money, 0%. And we just had a client, and a lot of people are going for like 100K or more typically. And in order to stack up, sometimes you have to get a lot of credit cards to get up there, which personally, I don't care to do that. But we've got our strategy and our system dialed in enough that we just got last week approved one client for 90K on one credit card. So that's a huge breakthrough. Not a quite a success story other than that number, because it's big for us because he's just got that. But we've had a number of clients. One just recently came through. He got 80K from one bank. We're getting him 100K total. He got 80K from Chase, and he really the year before everything was just the same. He got a $5,100 when he applied by himself. So it's a massive difference in what we're able to provide. And he's able to get his product in the market. He owns this manufacturing business for tea. And so he's getting his tea business going now, finally, after a lot of years of struggle with that. But really, just in general, a lot of people come through of like being able to step more fully into their purpose, more fully into their vision for their life, for their family. And I'm speaking with a lot of fathers coming right now to me with this, but like they're having a hard time paying for everyday expenses to provide for their children. So a lot of the numbers are great. They're massive breakthroughs for our clients because it really gets their business to the next level. But having these like real conversations and providing the hope for the people that are struggling right now is really what lights me up and gives me an opportunity to really let these people know, let these men know, let these women know that this is where you are, but you're not stuck here. We have a pathway forward that we'll create for you. We'll do this for you so you can focus on being a family man or woman, growing your business. We'll take care of all the rest. So just love these sort of opportunities to connect with people in a real way.
So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into a much younger version of yourself, say in your 20s, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained so far. What advice would you give your younger self?
Be present, be grateful, enjoy every moment of it, and really honor and value and respect the people in your life, because they will be here one minute, but it's not guaranteed they'll be here the next.
What was the most surprising thing you saw in Costa Rica? I always hear how beautiful it is there, and it's so unique.
Costa Rica was incredible. And we traveled quite a bit. So we were in Costa Rica for 4 months, 2.5 in Peru, 2 months in Colombia, 8 weeks backpacking through Europe. But Costa Rica specifically, most interesting thing.
I mean, it could be any of those places, just
Any of
something that blew
those?
you away.
Man, there's so many, but the one that always jumps out to me, Colombia, just Colombia in general. But a couple of things I'll share is, there's a lot of experiences that happen. They kind of all come to me at once sometimes. But yeah, Colombia is like, I feel like one of the most misunderstood countries in the world. Most people, when I share Colombia, like they think Netflix and Narcos. People have brought up kidnapping before. It's of course it happens here, but it definitely happens in the States. And I think it's just sort of like the programming of our culture that people really miss out on the depth of a lot of the world. Like I can't remember who you said or is traveling, but
Oh,
that
Rain
sort of
Wilson.
experience. Yeah,
Yeah,
Rainn Wilson.
yeah.
Like he's highlighting like the humanity that exists out there. But Colombia is just going there. It was just a real paradigm shift. And like we're told how things are from TV and mass media, but when you really get to the experience, in this case of this country, it's nothing like it. Colombia is an incredibly beautiful country. Jungles, beaches, waterfalls. It's amazing. It's cheap, which is excellent. It has a really bustling, alive culture, and a really rich indigenous tradition, which really helped change my life. And the people there are the most warming, welcoming people you ever meet. It really, over and over again. We lived there for 2 months. Over and over again, we were welcomed. We were like on the first walking tour. This is a simple story. Our first walking tour, and mind you, my wife, she's my girlfriend at the time, was very nervous. She was getting a lot of feedback from family and friends to be careful. She was on edge. You could just see it on her face. I'm like, babe, like, are you okay? Like, we're fine, right? And we were. But either way, on our walking tour, 3 days into Medellin, which used to be the most dangerous city in the world, we walked for a couple hours throughout the city. 5 people came up to us, said, "Welcome to Colombia. My home is your home. Thank you for coming." A dude literally ran across the street, arms up, gave me a big high five, and said, "Welcome to Colombia. Thank you for coming." And just like that was the first, like the first day out in town, basically.
Yeah.
And over the next 8 weeks, we had multiple experiences where we were welcomed. And so I think that really encapsulates what's out there and what we experienced while we were traveling.
Yeah. So professionally speaking, what are you the proudest of?
Well, that's a good question as well, and interesting. I think I have two opposing ideas coming in my head because like being the firefighter of the year it was a big deal. It really was. I've spoken, like I said, in front of hundreds of firefighters. It's the state award, and like having that opportunity and the chance to speak in that capacity and have that sort of that recognition was probably the biggest like official thing that I accomplished. And as contradictory as it was, then having the courage to leave that and create my own path is really the thing that I'm most proud of. And a number of the businesses I've started since have been, I just really feel on purpose. And now here again, I'm in another spot where I've been leveling up my life and my decisions over time. And I just feel like it continues to expand.
So everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Yeah. I continue to have contradictory things pop in my head. Well, because I'm working through some stuff right now on relationships, but I think I'm generally I'm seen as someone who takes action and I go for what I want, and I'm yeah. And right now the thing I'm working through is like I'm serious a lot, which has its place in the world, I think, but also what I'm working towards is being a bit more lighthearted and fun and playful,
Yeah.
and opening up my heart a little bit so I can be more authentic and relatable to people.
So final question, if you got into a time machine and can go back in history and see any event that's happened with your own eyes, what would you love to have seen happen?
The first one that comes up for me was the American Revolution.
Yeah.
And that was like a 20-year time period. So it was, that would be a lot to live through. But I feel like we're entering a similar time period here soon. Um, Not to be like too dramatic with it, but there's this every 250 years is the changing of the world order. And we're coming up on the 250th anniversary of 1776. So I think just what's happening in the world as things are shape shifting, that we're going to be experiencing a lot of my daughter is going to have a totally different life than I have had. And I think it would be really amazing to connect with the men, the people, the women that were involved as well, that were responsible for creating their new vision of an entire nation.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So if anyone out there wants to reach out, learn more about you, hire you, anything about your world, where can they go? Where's the best place?
Yeah, so Instagram is easy, action_Jesse. Otherwise, you can find abundance codes at abundancecodes.org. We've got a bunch of free gifts on there, free masterclass, free ebook, anything like that. You can schedule a free credit strategy call and discuss further. But we'd love to invite anybody to connect with me on Instagram or shoot me a message there on Abundance Codes.
Right on, Jesse. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Best of luck with everything. Wonderful story.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.